Hello creepy crew, welcome back. And if you're new here, this is a creepy content channel. So if that's something that you like, please remember to hit the like button, subscribe, and tell your friends about it. And on today's episode, we will be talking about the disturbing story of Ed Gein. But before we move forward, I must make a disclaimer that there's going to be some graphic descriptions in this video. So if you're willing to move forward, let's get into it. As I've mentioned to you all before, the creepiest things to me are true events. And in Ed Gein's case, it was so horrific and terrifying that there was movies created to portray his character. Movies like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Leatherface, and one of my all-time faves, Psycho. Now that you have an idea of just how creepy he was, let's get into the story. Ed Gein and his brother grew up living very sheltered childhoods. Their parents were both very strict. His mother was very religious, and for some reason, his mom let them know how she felt about women. She thought that all women were evil and women were of the devil, and basically all women on earth were just horrible creatures. Even though she was really abusive to the both of them, Ed was he was obsessed with his mother. He did anything and everything that woman said. He was always by her side. It was said that Ed Gein's obsession with his mom was so intense that he wished he can have her all to himself. So the last time Ed and Henry were together, they were fighting a bushfire together. Something happened to his brother Henry, and it was very strange. He, according to Ed, dropped dead during the bushfire and called 911. When the police arrived, they were going to do a search party, like they were going to get people to start searching for the brother, but Ed was able to walk them directly to where Henry was. And when they found him, he was face down on the ground, and he wasn't burned or anything. They were examining him, and the only thing there was just bruises on Henry's head. And they basically just were like, oh, he must have inhaled, some smoke, and he probably passed out and hit his head on the ground, and he just died that way. And they didn't do an autopsy or anything. They didn't look further into it. They just said it was just a bad accident, and they just let it go. Ed finally got what he wanted. He finally got to be with just his mom and him all to himself. But that didn't last long, because a couple years later, his mom ended up passing away due to a stroke. And that literally tore Ed apart. I mean, he was obsessed with his mother, so she was gone and he was on his own. But he later had a obsession with anatomy. So he started getting anatomy books, studying the human body. And then one day, I guess he was reading the obituary, and he got this idea that he would dig up a body and bring it home with him. Now, he later admitted to digging up middle-aged women who reminded him of his mother, and he was bringing them to the house, spending time with them, and then he was opening up their bodies and basically getting to know about the human body and stuff like that. And he was doing that for a really long time. Now, after time of bringing bodies home and spending days upon days with them, he started to get bored of that, and he wanted live interaction. He wanted to bring someone home who was alive. And well, he tried to do just that. And this is when things started to go downhill for him. So there was a woman in town by the name of Bernice Warden. Now, keep in mind, the town that he lived in was a very small town. He was actually living in Plainfield, Wisconsin at this time. It's a very small town. Everybody knows everybody, and everybody knew Ed to be very, to himself. He was known as being a recluse, very quiet. But to everybody's knowledge, they all, saw him as a harmless guy. But the week before he did anything, people were already talking about his unusual behavior that week. I guess that week, Ed Gein decided to try and approach Bernice by inviting her to go rollerblading. Everybody in that town, it's a very small town, everyone knows everyone, and they've all known Ed for years. He never talks to anyone, and he's very standoffish. And so that got everyone's attention. They were all like, what? Like, he never talks to women in that way. So it was definitely very noticeable to everyone. Okay, so let's fast forward to Saturday, November 16 of 1957. Now, side note, Bernice is actually an owner to the hardware store in town. She was, it was just a regular day. She was opening up the shop, and directly across the street was a man named Bernard Jr., and he owned the gas station, and the gas station was also a deer hunting registration place or whatever. And he had clear view of Bernice's shop, and he stated that that day he saw her, opening up at 8 a.m. and everything seemed normal, and that, through the middle of his shift, at one point he went to go in and talk to her. He noticed that the door was locked and the lights were still on. Now, he didn't immediately think anything weird or unusual at that time because it was very slow for everybody. So I guess he just automatically assumed that she probably went home early that day. So he just went back to his shop. And it just so turns out that Bernice's son, Frank, who was also the local sheriff in town, went to go to Bernard Jr.'s shop that same day, and it was to ask for some advice for deer hunting or whatever. During their conversation, Bernard was like, hey, by the way, I went to your mom's shop and the lights were on, but the door was locked. And that seemed concerning to Frank, especially because I guess he had a conversation with his mother and she was telling him that she was going to spend the whole day at the shop. So he went over to check on it, and he unlocked the door, and when he walks in, he said that he saw a trail of blood on the ground. So he immediately starts investigating. He noticed that the cash register was gone, and he starts to think about, the people that were in his shop, and the only thing that he could think of was when Ed Gein was there, and it was a little bit of a weird interaction for him to be there in the first place since they've never seen him there before. He asked her to go rollerblading, and people knew that he never really speaks to women in that way. And to make everything worse, he goes through the system and sees that the last receipt was sent to Ed Gein for coolant or air coolant or something. He goes straight to Ed Gein's house to question him. And him and other deputies get to Ed Gein's house, and they ask him to tell them about his day from start to finish. And he answers them, and they make him repeat himself, and he wasn't able to repeat his day from start to finish the same way as he did before. So it seemed as if he wasn't being truthful. He comes out of nowhere and kind of gives himself away and makes himself seem guilty, because he comes out of nowhere and tells the police that he's being set up. And they're like, being set up for what? And he was like, well, Bernice is dead, isn't she? Well, that was really weird for them because nobody knew any details. Nobody knew anything. No one even knew that she was missing. So that was definitely a red flag. They put him in the backseat of the car. And that was when police go to enter into Ed Gein's house. And what they saw was probably the most disturbing thing anyone could ever see. So they walk in and they go toward Ed Gein's kitchen area, and that was where they saw Bernice hanging upside down from the ceiling, sliced from her waist up, basically. So like cattle. All her body was drained. She had no organs inside her body. Her head was detached, so at that moment they didn't know where it was. All the furniture in the house was made out of human flesh and bones, and he had human skulls that were sawed in half, and so he made the skulls into soup bowls. And he had forks and spoons made out of human bones and lampshade made out of human lips. And it was crazy. And upon that, they said that this house was like, it looked like it was just gross. The smell in there was horrendous. There was human body parts everywhere. And they said that the refrigerator was full of organs, and her heart, Bernice's heart, was on the fridge. they ended up finding her head in a sack. Based off of all the furniture and everything in the house, they knew that there was like multiple victims or body parts, but it was later confirmed that a lot of those body things, the stuff that he created was from the bodies that he had dug up. But here's the crazy part about this, the crazy, dark, chilling parts about this. Not only was he making furniture out of human flesh, but he was also making flesh suits. So he was like skinning these bodies, and he was making them like wearable to him. So basically he was taking like the skin off their legs and like making them into leggings so he can wear them. And the point of that was so that he can wear them, like he can wear a woman's flesh, and he can dress like a woman, and he can feel as if he was his mom. Like he wanted to relive or like live through these human parts as his mom, and he would even go outside and like dance and do the things that his mom would do. And it was just, I mean, it's crazy. The stuff that you saw in those horror movies was basically just trying to reenact his life, like. And that is just something that is so scary to me, because as scary as those movies are, it was actually a real thing. So I don't know, for me it's just like I cannot imagine seeing that horrendous view, like walking into that house and seeing that woman like hanging from her ankles. Like they said that it was like cattle, like the way that they do in slaughterhouses. I don't know. And another thing is, I don't know. So they say that because those organs were in the fridge, they believe that he was eating his victims as well. And I was like, I don't know what it is with Wisconsin, but I know Jeffrey Dahmer was actually from Wisconsin as well. So I was like, is there something I don't know about in Wisconsin with this weird, disturbing, I don't know, it's just really crazy. I want to know what you guys think about this one, and if you guys have heard anything else about Ed Gein that you guys find to be creepy. But thank you so much for watching this episode of Creepy Content with me. I'll see you next time. Bye.